So Brian, I'm like the heaviest I've been in a while. You're the lightest you've been in a while, right? You want to talk about how you've been eating a ton and losing weight?
Well, I was until my bike race ended.
Oh
So,
no. Okay.
yeah. So I'll just quickly give you the TLDR on the last 9 months. I signed up for a bike race. We talked about it, I think, on a prior podcast. I trained super super hard for this bike race. Accumulated a ton of mileage at the last 2 months prior to the actual race, which occurred on October 7th. The 2 or 3 months before that, I was averaging between 8 and 11 hours a week on the bike. And so that was about 140 to 160 miles a week. It was a lot of movement. Most days, my Apple Watch would tell me that I was burning 1,500 to 2,000 calories just from all the movement I was doing. And so my body weight plummeted. Despite eating every single thing I could possibly get my hands on all day long. I wasn't doing any intermittent fasting. I was just eating food all the way up until right before bedtime. And my body weight plummeted all the way down to 180, which is lower than any of those photo shoots that I've done. So in the past 3 or 4 years, I've done a number of photo shoots. The lowest I ever was for any of those was 182. I got to 180 and it was effortless. I never had to hold back on any food item that I wanted to eat. I was full all the time.
Wow.
And
any tracking of the calories?
No tracking of calories. I was just trying to eat to the point of being full every day. Wow. For every meal, basically. And my body weight just kept going down and down and down and down. And so I held the low 180s for a couple weeks toward the end of that bike race. And then now we're 4 weeks post bike race and I'm back up to 189, 190 is kind of where my body weight has been settling.
Okay.
And it's still going up. So my guess would be that it continues to climb a little bit unless I actually do something to kind of halt that. But overall, like, it's been quite a revelation to me that I was able to lose weight so seamlessly that way, because in the past 3 diets that I've done for my photo shoots each year, I was doing steps and cutting calories. Yeah. And I was constantly hungry. I was constantly food focused. And the performance decrements that I noticed in my training were really equivalent, whether I was walking 12 to 15,000 steps and cutting calories, or biking 11 hours a week and lifting and not counting calories. Both got me to the same place. Performance was more or less the same. Like, I was losing reps or weight on most pressing movements and some quad movements, but pretty much all of my pulling, whether it was hamstring based or back based, really stayed the same, even progressed a little bit. And yeah, it felt so much easier, and it really makes me reconsider the way that I potentially will diet in the future.
So no tracking of calories, but felt like you were eating a lot. Did you feel you were leaner at this 180 than your photo shoot 182s?
It's close. I haven't shaved my chest in over a year now.
Okay.
And I have way more hair on there than I ever thought that I would have, because I've been shaving it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so when I look at myself now, it's very ambiguous. It's tough to say. I don't think I'm quite as shredded as I was when I was just doing steps and lifting. And I think that part of that is probably due to water retention from inflammation, just from so much exercise.
Yeah.
But my thought on that is that if I were to have taken a week at the end of that, maybe 10 days, and stopped doing all the crazy exercise and just really lifted and walked, that I think a lot of that inflammation and water retention probably would have shed off, and it would have created an interesting opportunity to see what it looked like under there.
Which presumably, though, would have had you closer to maybe like 178, though, right?
Yeah, maybe. I know I don't feel great when I'm that low. It really, when I started to feel these signs of, call it diet fatigue or deficit fatigue or whatever you want to call it, it really hits me under 185. And it didn't matter whether I was just lifting and walking or whether I was doing it with all of this intense cardiovascular exercise. That low 180s place for me is just not a great place to be for all of the kind of subjective measures of biofeedback.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, we talk about how cardio is not that effective for fat loss, right? Because, I mean, numerous studies show this. But to be fair, at the extreme ends, there's something to be said for your body can only adapt so much, right?
Yeah.
But even with the HODSA studies and everything that they talked about, they were doing a ton of cardio though, right? I mean, and the whole thing was that their maintenance was basically similar to average Americans. So I don't know how many hours per week they were doing, but presumably quite a lot. Now, I also wonder, would your body have just adapted eventually where this was, how long were you training for this?
A total of 9 to 12 months, but it really didn't amp up with the really high level of activity until the last 3 months, probably.
Okay. So 3 months ago, how much did you weigh?
I was right where I am now, 190.
Okay. So that's really when you started noticing that kind of big drop.
Yeah, my body weight for the first 6 months of the biking stuff, it didn't really change. I just kind of hung out in the 190s, but I was low 190s, but I was eating whatever I wanted. Same deal, not tracking it all, always full. And then at some point, about 3 months out, it just started dropping, plummeting, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was like I was eating to over satisfaction, and still, weight was just falling off.
Because I just wonder if it was it's like, okay, your body got to that point where it just couldn't adapt enough anymore, if that was what happened, or if it was like, hey, eventually after it, like if you just maintain that level of biking for years, would it have eventually adapted and then weight would start creeping up again? You kind of have to get used to that. Obviously, I don't know, but it's interesting to see that.
Yeah, I think there's just a certain amount of compensation that can occur. And so I was listening to Herman Poncer actually on, I can't remember what podcast I was listening to him on. It was one of the exercise science podcasts I've been listening to. It might have even been that the one that Inside Exercise, where I told you that one to listen to with Coggin. Mm-hmm. But there was an interview on one of these podcasts I listened to with Poncer. And the guy was pushing back on him about energy compensation. And eventually at the end of the conversation, he sort of seceded that the body can really only compensate up to about 600 calories per day. And that anything over 600 calories is just going to be uncompensated for. And so,
but he even has a value, no? Like, what? Sorry to interrupt, but he even has a value, no? Like BMR plus or BMR times 2.5. There's something like that is like the top number. So like, and for an average size person, that would be like around like maybe mid 4,000 ish calories. Like one time I calculated. So like, and that's from Poncer.
So that would assume that I'd have to be eating 4,500 calories, or I'd have to be burning 4,500 calories.
So that's the calorie burn that you can ramp it up to. Like and that's where it seems to be kind of capping off.
Well, in my case, I mean, when I was biking less, I may not have been high enough for there to like it might have all been compensated for. And then it reached a point where I was biking so much, like if you're biking 11 hours a week, I was essentially averaging close to 90 minutes a day, and that's 900 calories of burn from biking alone each day, not to mention my walking, my general movement, my NEAT, my lifting, all those different other things. And so my theory was just that I, at some point, was exercising so much that it just couldn't be compensated for any longer.
Yeah. I mean, there has to be a point, right? Yeah. When your body is just like a ton of movement is still a ton of movement. So, because like if there truly was like the compensation was like so remarkably efficient, then we wouldn't see with top athletes who stop doing their stuff and then they gain a ton of weight. But and then like they go from that's when you realize just how lean these people were, because they look like normal people in a basketball jersey or baseball gear and whatever. And then you see their faces when they stop doing it, and there's like it's like, oh my God, so his face was actually that lean. So, and I guess that wouldn't happen if your body was like that crazy efficient. So
yeah, sure.